Welcome back to New Rockstars, I'm Erik Voss, and this has been a huge year for Star Wars. Between The Mandalorian and the Clone Wars amazing final season, really good Star Wars content that has really restored our hope for this franchise's future. A future that hopefully soon will allow us to actually visit Galaxy's Edge without having to snatch Vader's respirator mask for breathable air. One of the questions I often get asked is, hey boss, I'm sitting around with all this Star Wars stuff to stream and it's cold and scary outside. And I'm like, is there a question in there? Also, how did you get my personal phone number? And you're like, yeah, my question is, what order should I watch all this Star Wars in? Also, I'm banging your ex-fool. Got a lot of fans in Boston. It is a great question. A question at the heart of every fan of Star Wars, a series initially introduced out of chronological order, and one later instructed to us by George Lucas to watch in an order different than the release order. Add that to the fact that we also have The Mandalorian and Clone Wars and Rebels to fit into this timeline, and Dave Filoni apparently considers it very important that we know what Ahsoka's owl was all about. So in this video, I am going to explain how these different viewing orders change the whole meaning of how you experience this saga and introduce you to some new alternate watch orders that you could try instead. Because none of these watch orders are really perfect, we're gonna do our best to fix that for you. In fact, I'm gonna break down 5 Star Wars watch orders that you can consider. Let's start with the simple release order. My go-to suggestion for any new fan who has never seen these is to try your best to watch it in the order Lucasfilm initially released each installment, so that the setups and the payoffs, the foreshadows and the callbacks hit as they were creatively constructed to hit. So here you start with the original 1977 Star Wars, and then Empire Strikes Back, then Return of the Jedi, and then Episode 1 The Phantom Menace, Attack of the Clones, Revenge of the Sith, then The Force Awakens, then Rogue One, then The Last Jedi, then Solo, then The Rise of Skywalker. Now, if you want to add the TV series to that release order, after Revenge of the Sith, you'd watch the Clone Wars 2008 animated film and seasons 1 through 6 of the Clone Wars, then seasons 1 and 2 of Rebels, then after Force Awakens, Rebels season 3, after Rogue One, Rebels season 4, and then after Solo, Star Wars Resistance seasons 1 and 2 if you're interested in that, then The Mandalorian season 1, and then after The Rise of Skywalker, watch Clone Wars season 7, and then Mando season 2. But if you really want to be committed to this release order path and pretend you're a Star Wars fan discovering all this stuff in the 80s, 90s, and aughts like we did, after A New Hope, you can watch the Star Wars Holiday Special, and then after Return of the Jedi, you can watch those 2 Ewok Adventures movies. I mean, how else are you truly going to appreciate those blurs in The Mandalorian? And then you should read the 90s Expanded Universe novels to best appreciate Thrawn, starting with Timothy Zahn's Heir to the Empire. Then you must find a screening of Meet Joe Black and watch only the preview trailer for The Phantom Menace and then walk the F out before Brad Pitt hits that second car. By the way, you gotta watch all the teasers and trailers for all movies, especially that one for The Force Awakens. That was a big deal in our lives. Also, you gotta be sure to read Son of Dathomir, read Shattered Empire and Chuck Wendig's Aftermath books, read Ahsoka, play Knights of the Old Republic, play all the games, including the story campaigns for both Battlefronts, Jedi Fallen Order, do and read everything, because somewhere out there, some asshole commenter is going to act like he knows more than you about it. Okay, we're going overboard here, but if you just stick to the films and TV series, the problem some will say with the release order is that some of those post-release re-edits by Lucas's team over the years have forced a kind of chronological watch. The big one is that final shot of Return of the Jedi. The Force ghost of Anakin, played by Sebastian Shaw in the theatrical release, was controversially altered to be that of Hayden Christensen in a re-release. Anakin from the prequels, not the face Luke just emotionally connected with when he unmasked his father. But I would say, other than that weird moment, I think you're overall pretty okay watching everything in release order. But of course, when George Lucas released the prequels, he was pretty insistent recommending us to watch the movies in chronological order. So let's take him at his word and add in the TV series. Here we go, chronological order. You basically take episodes 1 through 9 in order, but then you add in all of Clone Wars after Attack of the Clones, and then after Revenge of the Sith, you add Solo, then Rebels, then Rogue One, then A New Hope, and then after Return of the Jedi, you fit in Mandalorian seasons 1 and 2, then Resistance if you want, and then the sequel trilogy. And if you really want to be nerdy about that, Knights of the Old Republic is set long before Phantom Menace. That would go first in the chronology. Fallen Order would go after Revenge of the Sith, and then after Return of the Jedi would go those Aftermath novels. And we did learn Galaxy's Edge in Disneyland is set between The Last Jedi and The Rise of Skywalker. But you can see why this is weird, right? No one's first installment of the Star Wars saga should be The Phantom Menace. I am sorry. And you cannot make us wait that that long to watch A New Hope. Not only does this order spoil the greatest reveal in film history, Darth Vader being Luke's father, it also ruins other things like Yoda revealing himself not as a bumbling swamp idiot, but as the actual wise master that Luke is looking for. It kind of ruins the sense of mystery of whatever those Clone Wars Ben Kenobi was talking about. It makes it super awkward to watch Leia kiss Luke in Empire after learning that they're brother and sister. Also, there's that appearance of Morai in the final scene of Clone Wars. It would mean nothing this way because you haven't had the benefit of watching Rebels to give you that context yet. The one kind of cool thing we get in the chronological order in exchange for all that is the genuine shock of seeing Palpatine transform into his scarred and disfigured self, but I would also argue that transformation is really more fun to watch because of the dramatic irony we feel knowing the freaky demon he will be in Return of the Jedi. But before we continue with this, I want to just take a moment to thank our sponsor who helped us make this episode, Lucy. So Lucy is on a mission to decrease the harmful effects of tobacco through their new nicotine gum. Lucy is a discreet, better tasting alternative to get nicotine, started by two Caltech scientists who spent 2 years rebuilding the whole idea of nicotine gum from the ground up. They actually have 3 flavors. There's wintergreen, cinnamon, and pomegranate. They also just added nicotine lozenges and a cherry ice flavor. I myself am not a smoker, but I do have some good friends who are and are really trying to quit. I actually gave them Lucy as a way to avoid the whole nastiness of smoking that they're trying to kick out of their lives. Like, they were tired of having stinky clothes or a bad breath after a smoke. They love this stuff, and the cinnamon was actually a favorite flavor of the ones I asked. And again, Lucy's mission is to reduce tobacco-related harm to zero by creating a future where nicotine products can satisfy adult tobacco users without tobacco. We all know smoking is bad for you, and that is why Lucy created a better tasting product that you can use anywhere, indoors, while traveling, or while watching a new Rockstars video. Just be sure to use the code Rockstars to get 20% off all products at lucy.co. That's lucy.co, and use the code Rockstars to get 20% off all products. And warning, this product does contain nicotine. Nicotine is an addictive chemical. You should only be using it if you are a smoker, but if you're a smoker, you know how important stuff is. So get on it. Thanks again to Lucy. These issues with the chronological order is how we got the infamous Machete Order, a reorder proposed by blogger Rod Hilton in 2011. In this order, you start with A New Hope, and then Empire Strikes Back, and then Attack of the Clones. He suggests slashing Phantom Menace altogether after Attack of the Clones, then Revenge of the Sith, and then jump back ahead to Return of the Jedi. Back in 2011, Hilton hoped to kind of erase from our memories Jake Lloyd, Anakin, and Jar Jar, midichlorians, the Trade Federation Naboo conflict, and all that stuff with Anakin's virgin birth. And then Hilton actually later recommended watching 7, 8, 9 in order after Return of the Jedi. And then, if you want, watching Phantom Menace, Rogue One, Solo, Clone Wars, Rebels, everything else is a kind of anthology supporting material in any order that you want. Now, my problem with the Machete Order is no Star Wars feature film can be erased from canon, folks. And that is truer than ever now because of what I call this Filoni renaissance of all the interconnectivity of the Clone Wars series, Rebels, and now The Mandalorian. And it's not just Maul we're talking about. Phantom Menace has a lot going for it. The pod racing VFX are awesome. Qui-Gon is a dick to the Jedi Order. There's some really cool foreshadowing of Palpatine's whole plot in the prequels. So let's try to build on this. Release order is still my recommendation for all first timers. Like when I have kids, that's how they're gonna watch them while I play with their Star Wars toys. Here are my priorities as we try to assemble a new Star Wars watch order. 1, it must include all feature films and Clone Wars and Rebels and The Mandalorian. Like, you can consider the TV and streaming series secondary, but not optional. And I don't want to hear it. You do have the time to watch them. You are someone who watches Star Wars videos here on YouTube. Personally, I consider Resistance to be optional. That's just me. And the games are great, but also optional. Play them in whatever order you want. Second priority, I want to try to preserve the big twists and reveals as they were originally intended by the filmmakers. So more catharsis, more tension and release, less all-knowing dramatic irony. And then third, for better or worse, all movies must be Lucasfilm's current versions, the ones most widely available to stream. It's just not practical to try to track down 1997 special editions of the original trilogy or bootleg that terrible re-edit of The Last Jedi. I'm sorry, we're just gonna have to work with Force Ghost Hayden and Greedo McClunky. So with these goals in mind, I have constructed for seasoned consumers of Star Wars content 2 new Star Wars watch orders based on what type of narrative focus you prefer from this fictional universe. The first new order I am calling the Skywalker Order. I was going to call it the Jedi Order, but that's already a thing in Star Wars. So the Skywalker Order puts front and center the story of the Skywalker family, the Jedi and the Sith, everyone who's got a lightsaber. It's really a watch order for all of us who have purchased lightsabers in our lifetimes and like to make hum noises when we knock over lamps. And that's us. The Skywalker Order begins with what else? Of course, the story of Luke and Vader in A New Hope. And then, of course, that mythology deepens in The Empire Strikes Back. But then, after Vader's parentage is revealed, we take a cue from the Machete Order and we jump back to the Anakin origin story, and we include the Phantom Menace this time. Then we follow that along to Attack of the Clones, followed by Clone Wars. Now, I know you're gonna say there's still that Morai issue, but you are a seasoned watcher. You have already seen this stuff, so you get it. Then we go to Revenge of the Sith, and then Rogue One, which does include one of the best Vader scenes, leaving us with a kind of nice balance of empathy and raw fear of that villain as we return to his redemption story in Return of the Jedi. Now, then we follow the legacy of these original trilogy heroes in The Force Awakens, and then follow that through in The Last Jedi and The Rise of Skywalker. The Rise of Skywalker has interesting returns of Lando Calrissian and a surprise return of Han Solo, which I think would make a nice transition to Solo. And that movie has the return of Maul, which would make for an interesting shift to Rebels, a show that features Ahsoka's return with those white sabers, setting up her big return in The Mandalorian. And I'm doing it this way because I really think Mandalorian works best if it comes after Clone Wars and Rebels. There's just too many awesome Easter eggs from those shows that are in The Mandalorian. It helps to have seen those first. And with Mandalorian, I think that is the best place to end this Skywalker watch order, because right now it seems like The Mandalorian is really looking ahead to the future of the Jedi with characters like Grogu and Ahsoka. Now, I will admit, not everyone watches Star Wars for the lightsabers, right? Especially when that whole Arthurian monomyth kind of drowned in its own bloodlines in episode 9. A lot of us also just love Star Wars for the wars. And with that in mind, I present to you our second option, the Rogue Order. This order begins with Rogue One. Now, not a perfect film, but an awesome one still. Beautifully shot, probably my favorite Star Wars ending, contextualizing this universe from the ground level in a way that reminds us that you don't have to be a chosen one or part of any important bloodline to make a difference. We follow that with, of course, A New Hope, dovetailing perfectly on Rogue One's ending. But before we follow Luke and Vader into Empire, we get a truly rogue shift here. Stay with me. Rebels next. Rebels keeps us in that kind of uncertain galactic civil war time. It forces us to get to know more foot soldiers in this war. And it kind of has that in medias res quality that the original Star Wars film had. And I like following Rebels with Solo, which not that great of a movie, but it does feel like a really good live action episode of Rebels, right? And then after getting this Han Solo Lando prequel, we get the Han Solo Lando movie with The Empire Strikes Back. But that movie ends with Vader getting revealed, which is the best cliffhanger of all time, but really just because that whole movie ends with the fact that the Rebel Alliance is in a real rout. So in that uncertainty, we jump back to the dawn of this age of militarization, Attack of the Clones. And then we follow that with all of Clone Wars, because now we get the benefit of Ahsoka and that whole Morai bird in the final scene. And really, you'll just notice with this list, I'm trying to space out the longer TV series by sandwiching them between 3 or so movies. Okay, so after Clone Wars, perfect opportunity to pick up with Revenge of the Sith. Those events are all coinciding. But then after Revenge of the Sith is another rogue shift, going back to Phantom Menace. It's a bit weird, I know, but trust me, I recently rewatched Phantom Menace directly after watching Revenge of the Sith, and all of that tragic context makes Phantom Menace such a darker, better movie. And now in this structure, Phantom Menace is kind of a penultimate episode origin flashback, and we follow that by moving on to the Galactic Civil War finale in Return of the Jedi. Now, The Mandalorian works as a perfect successor to Return of the Jedi, because in this order, it's also still following Rebels and Clone Wars. And also now in the show, it looks like there's more than enough details to foreshadow the rise of the First Order, so then we can close out with the sequel trilogy, but we go in this order: Force Awakens, then The Rise of Skywalker, and then The Last Jedi. Why do I rearrange those? Well, The Rise of Skywalker is a much better successor to The Force Awakens than The Last Jedi is. Honestly, in The Rise of Skywalker, it feels like J.J. Abrams pretended The Last Jedi didn't really happen anyway. Like, imagine this, you follow Rey handing Luke his old saber on Ahch-To, but then you leave what followed a mystery. We don't get that snarky toss just yet. Instead, we go straight from Ahch-To at the end of The Force Awakens to Rey training in the jungle in The Rise of Skywalker. It is kind of a fun transition that makes sense in a tonal way. Obviously, there's some plot details you would have to overlook, but you already know what happens, who cares? Tonally, Rise of Skywalker is the spiritual successor to The Force Awakens. The Last Jedi is really the bold thematic pivot that looks forward. So that is why this Rogue Order ends with The Last Jedi, which, whatever you might not have loved about that film, it remains a beautifully shot war film that, like Rogue One, puts a spotlight on nobodies just trying to make a difference in that war effort. So there you have it. There are 5 alternate watch orders, including my 2 new orders for experts trying to rearrange things in the way to prioritize certain thematic elements. Now you might want to pretend one or a few of these movies didn't exist. That's not me. For me, it's all canon. And depending on what order you now watch it in, you might find new things that you like about how everything fits together. So let me know which of these watch orders you like the best, and you can support this channel by checking out our various apparel and merch options at newrockstarsmerch.com. Subscribe to New Rockstars, hit that notification button, follow me on Instagram at EA Voss, follow New Rockstars. Thank you for watching, bye.